Sound. Oh, test. Sorry. Test, test. I see you. No sound. All right. What do we got going here? Franco's in the house. Let me get him started here. Oh, here we go. What's happening, Franco, on
Hello.
11/11?
Yes, exciting, eh? Just gonna mute my computer here.
I'm very happy. I only had one show today, and I'm very happy it's you.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
very happy it's 11/11. So that's a Trinity energy.
Yes, yes. Very supportive energy. Can be intense a little bit, but let me just get
You
this.
think?
I don't. I'm even feeling it.
Oh my God, I don't feel so bad.
No,
but I think I've come to well, at least a temporary holding pattern to discuss with you and open up the show with.
Okay. I'm just
And
doing a quick share here.
yeah, I'll do the same.
Wait a second.
But I figure the way it's going, one thing that seems to be happening is that it's not changing. It's not becoming any more familiar, like in respect to where we've come from. It's kind of like unfamiliar. The vibration's unfamiliar as you're going through it. Everything is unfamiliar. But some of the same things keep happening again, or you're in a place where you want to be. I don't know how to explain it. And yet these feelings still come in, and it's not, you said at times it gets, intense, but yeah, I'm just kind of like at the point now where I'm just going to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I figure. Just go with it. What do we got to lose? They can't
You
kill
have
us.
nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. A lot to gain from it. And when I say gain, I mean you're going to partake in really accessing and using the what's being provided for us, that we are providing really for ourselves. Let me just
True.
get this. A little challenge here. There we go. Okay, I think I got it working.
You want me to share it to your page?
Yeah, I'm just going to check to see if I've attempted. Let's see if it's actually working. Oh, it is. Perfect.
All right.
It is. Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Seems like every time I try, it just gives me some other little glitch, but I got to go in this time.
Well, that always happens when you come on. You always morph into this other beings. I always wonder if the audience can see it, but I don't think they can.
Probably the odd one here and there, but I'm glad nobody's commenting it.
Yeah.
It's when when you're tuning into higher frequencies, you actually go into more of a, like, for example, if you're transmitting from a fifth dimension, sixth or seventh, the more corresponding physicality and also the energies being transmitted will be reflective. Sometimes technologies don't work out so well because they can't handle it. Other times, depending on the state of the recipient or whoever it is, they either see it or they can experience a disruption sort of thing because of what's going through. But regardless, it's very powerful, and it helps people to actually align with that energy of themselves anyways, because we all have the capacities to play in those realms. But we have this tendency to believe that we're this human being that is going through all of this stuff. Everything is dictated around us, that we're not really redesigning and shaping our life every second. It's that belief that people take on, but in fact, we're very active in what we're experiencing. And especially right now, I mean, all the energies that are coming through is allowing us to play in that playground that, we've so long wanted to stage and to experience. And it doesn't matter if we're playing on one or the other. Both of them are absolutely serving for whatever experience that we choose to have. Let's see. Yep. Okay.
And that's the 3D organic and the 5D organic.
Correct.
When you say
correct.
there's two playgrounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There used to be one playground that held all of them. Basically, it was a 2D, inverted 3D, the organic 3D, the organic, well, there was the 4D and then the organic 5D. And it was all mishmashed, and that was great. And we went through quite a few years of that experience, even though where people were calling in to jump into higher vibration, higher consciousness, and to have sort of a team all playing on the same platform with the same direction. Because the people who were playing in 2D really had the direction to stay playing in 2D, which is deep sleep and so forth. The ones that were playing in inverted 3D were having fun in the inverted 3D, even though they were challenging themselves with the 3D. Inverted 3D. The ones that actually wanted to actually experience the organic 3D was transmitting that. So you had a mismatch, including the 5D. So there was a lot of different energies all playing out. The beauty right now, this is the thing, Todd, no matter if you're an organic 3D or organic 5D, you're actually only in that energy. You're in that energy of organic 3D and organic 5D, even though you have the inverted 3D and 2D playing there, but they're only being projected out. They're not actually holding the space of the frequency. So you're not having all these mismatched frequencies. You're just having the one, but in the one, you can play them all. So I hope I didn't lose you there with the audio or anything.
No, you came in your typical ET bits and pieces, but I think I got it. Okay. Let me restate it, because I thought.
Okay.
So you're saying, okay, you're either in the 3D or the 5D, because that was my first question. Can you be in both? But you explained that, and then you said that the 2D, inverted 3D, inverted 2D are still playing, but they're almost like external only. They're not internalizing.
Yes, they're only that's correct. They're only projecting, and they're not holding a certain energy of wanting to stay in the 2D, because if you're an organic 3D, all you're seeing right now is a projection of the inverted 3D and a projection of the 2D. But you're in organic 3D and you're playing there. If you're in 5D, the same thing. In 5D, you're seeing a projected organic 3D and a projected inverted 3D and a projected 2D. Their energies do not affect you per se, depending on which one you're in. However, if we're still run by programs, belief systems, perceptions, and all of those other stored memories and so forth that relate very heavily in the 2D or inverted 3D or any of the other Ds, then you're now co-projecting them. And that's why it feels like nothing changed in a way, because in essence, you're still projecting those movies, and you're looking at the movie instead of seeing the actual play. You're looking at the movie and saying, well, the movie is real. It's like you go into the cinema and you're watching the movie and you get engrossed in the movie, and it triggers you whatever you're seeing on the screen. And this is what we're doing right now. That's the difference. Before, we had a mismatch of energies, and everyone is trying to project their own movie on one screen. So it's like having several projectors. You have the 2D projecting, or inverted 3D projecting, the 5D projecting, the 4D projecting, and the organic 5D projecting. And now you only have the one, but that one is, again, projecting one, but it's also including stuff that looks like it into the play. Now, the beauty of all of this, for us to actually experience our true vibration of what organic 3D or 5D, we have to integrate all of that. And that means purging out all of the stuff that we've held on and labeled ourselves when we were playing in the 2D or inverted 3D and anything in between. So that's the refining that's going on right now. And I'm doing an extra workshop on the 23rd of November to help the next level, because the first one we did was the 5th of October. That was to understand the organic 3D and 2D. Now this next one is your role, because it's not, see, this is the thing, Todd, and this applies to everybody, of course, but when we're looking at this, people think, okay, all right, we're there now, my world's going to change. Well, we are there. We're still trying to integrate with it. We're working towards that integration, but we're still operating from the old system. And that's the part we have to unprogram ourselves, because we got several things going on. Go ahead.
So do we have to unplug ourselves from the there that comes from where we were?
Yes.
concept of there,
Yes.
because it struck me when you said, because people feel like they're going to be there, or, the there's not there. And then somebody just put a comment up here, all respect. So the energies aren't completing right now. I don't think there is a completing, is there? I mean, that's what I was saying at the top of the show. What I was saying is I don't see the there, but what I do see is that, hey, I'm with the woman I love. I've got a roof over my head. Something keeps keeping us going, and we're going around and meeting people and such. We're about to go to Sedona. That's there. And that wasn't there before. There wasn't like, hey, what do you want in your life? And it's all there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that, yeah. So I don't know. But this second thing that you're doing, the second part that you're doing, it sounds like that's involving to some degree the physical body, because I'm seeing a lot of people not necessarily going through like a horrible physical stuff, although I've seen some people make posts in that regard. I mean, a lot glitches or things coming up in the physical body as I guess as the light body, ultimately the light body's coming into play. And I'm going to give you a question that somebody wrote in with contribution, and I don't remember who it is, so I apologize for that. But she said that she understood in listening to you overall how the light body is coming into play. And she said somewhere she'd read, I guess her question is, what percent of the organic body can convert to the light body, in our lifetime? Something like that. It was something like she thought there was only so much the human body could do. What's your take on that?
Well, again, when you're looking at what the human body is, it's a holographic light show, and it's basically a field of consciousness and energy. Now, there's no limits to it. The only limits we have is what we're playing with. If we have a lot of memory within the cellular structure of a body and so forth, that everything moves slowly, it's rigid, you're aging, you fall apart, you die, all of that stuff, as long as that's still active, it will mimic that. So with all the energies that are coming through and the stuff that we're going through right now is helping to rewrite all of that so that we are not bound to that. Because when you say lifetime, it depends what we're looking at. If we believe we're going to die, before 100 years old or much sooner than that, then, will you make it in life? Depends. If you're 99, how much light you're going to get? You're going to get quite a bit, but you're not going to get to the point. However, if you activate, and that part gets activated within ourselves, where we go back to our natural state, which is a body can now last 1,000 years as an average. It's an average. It's not even maximum, right? So then, yes, there's plenty of time for all that. Now, as we go, for example, if you're an organic 3D, your body's going to embody quite a bit of light, but at the same time, it's going to still have the rigidity. However, it's not going to be operating as deeply in the old codes where you get sick, you need to fall apart, that you need to have medical attention, that, you have to age and all of that stuff, because that is not part of the operating system, even in the organic. When you're going into organic 5D, that was organic 3D. If we're going to organic 5D, it's actually another octave of light or spectrum of light, which the body actually holds more, and it becomes even more fluid and more adaptable to whatever's playing out. All of this takes a bit of time because to shift the body so quickly can be shocking, because especially if we're still trying to play in the old game, which we're working through to shift within ourselves.
So it sounds like there's two elements. There's two elements. Let me just say it this way. So it sounds like this is, we're talking post shift or post whatever that line of delineation was. Whenever that was, October 21st, I think. But anyway, so you have an element here that is part of the playing field now, such as the physical ramifications of the light body, and I mean in a positive sense more than in a discomfort sense. So at some level, the person, it would seem that the person doesn't necessarily have to focus on affirmations of I am 33 years old and viral. But on the other hand, that could still be beneficial to us. And I'm not saying it is. I'm asking a question, just in the regard of the school of thought that we are what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what you were saying is that it was tied to that. How much time and effort should we be spending, if any, on positive affirmations of our youth and vitality? Or is this process coming in at a much bigger force since October and this shift changed?
Well, that's an excellent question, Todd, because it's not about the affirmations, and it's not about, envisioning yourself at 33 years old, or saying, well, I am 33 versus, 63, or whatever the age someone may be at. It's the thing is reversing the idea that you are a certain age. So in fact, what you're doing is you're not paying attention to the number and what that number represents from an old belief system, right? So instead of saying, well, I'm 63, or, I'm slowing down, I need to, the whole story of, what does it mean to be 63 or 83 or 93, whatever it is. I'm just using those as examples. And it's really just unraveling yourself from that and start seeing yourself in your daily life as no longer the age that you are, and the vitality that you may have had at different stages in your life. But even that vitality is an older vitality. It's an older version of you anyways, but it's just allowing yourself to experience without even putting a number to it, right? And just experience yourself in that youthful state where you're not, it's really a deprogramming of the idea what that number represents is the thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you're too young, you're saying, oh, I'm too young, I'm not going to get there. If I'm too old, then I'm not going to get there. But in fact, neither one matter. It's just it's the body, the number that people have put on, which is the body, but itself is really, it doesn't actually make any difference. So it's not really so much the affirmation is when you have a chance, the opportunity, you make the time to kind of see yourself, not so much an age, but that vitality that you really want to express, because all of us, Todd, feel young inside. But we start to feel old when we give power to the stories that we're getting older, that my life is finished, or this and that. That's what drains us. Because I don't know, do you feel your age? Let me ask you that question. Do you feel your age? No,
I don't feel my age. Actually, I can see evidence of something has happened every day. And then on issues such as, I used to have chronic back problems and just other things, I can tell there's a change. So, but there, it's somewhere between the conscious thought and intuition. Let me put it that way. I don't know if we move into 5D and it's all straight intuition and telepathy, and or if we actually even have any type of conscious thought, you know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is while that's still in play, it seems like it would be real important how we see ourselves. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to go get some pictures of myself and then get Photoshop and change them and make myself look young and look at them every day.
you don't need that.
No. But what I mean is the power, I don't know. I'm just kind of like intrigued by the power of the imagination. I mean, like, how far can we take this? I mean, to me, it's like every day you get up and like, oh my God, look at this. There's no horizons anywhere. You can run as far, fly as fast as you want to, swim, crawl, whatever you want to do. And there's nothing there. There's nothing blocking anything. So, that's really that's really compelling to me, because I think I'm a pretty progressive thinker, and I'm just judging myself or whatever you want to call it. But to me, I find it extraordinary to be in this body I've been in for 57 years and know I'm physical, but I don't feel very physical. And, and to be from the conditioning we had and the experience we had in a physical body with all the pains and all the pleasures and all that, to go to a place where you think, oh my God, I could actually shift this. Like like other things we've shifted over the last few years within ourselves when we've done work on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You almost want to, you could almost throw, like, widen the categories as like you said, the projections, the projectors were diminishing down to 2, you know, I mean, eventually they go down to 1, but like, you know, it's like you could throw into the category, say, of something that doesn't make sense, like taxes or paying for a burial. And you could throw into that box, aging, you know, like where it's not even in my conscious thought.
Yes, yes, exactly. The thing that you mentioned there about the thoughts and so forth, with the changes going into true organic 3D and 5D that we're playing with, and the changes that we're experiencing regarding the thoughts, when we're talking about just having thoughts, what really actually shifts also, in addition to all of this, is the fact that right now, a lot of the thoughts we have are ego-based, okay? Basically artificial intelligence, recycling, making up stories, blah, 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 and all of that. The second level is our, what we call the overall consciousness, which is, again, programs, belief systems, and so forth that we have. And of course, some of the thoughts are supported by our subconscious mind, which is basically a storehouse of everything that we've experienced. As we move forward in that regards, what happens is the ego no longer exists because it's no longer that story maker. So already you go to a level of quietness. But then your conscious mind actually starts to deprogram. So all your belief systems and so forth that we've attached to and so forth start to diminish. The stuff in the subconscious mind actually starts to no longer be supportive. So that starts to go. So now the dialogue becomes aligned, where you're actually, the body dialogues through you, your human entity dialogues with you, your soul, your higher aspect of you, is dialoguing with you, and all of it is going in there, but in alignment where they're all working together. So in essence, your thought forms, what we call thought forms, basically are more refined rather than scattered all over the place based on programs of that nature. Now, when it comes to communication, like you said, well, is it going to be a mostly telepathic and so forth? When you get into the higher dimensions, you find that it's a much more efficient to communicate telepathically because there's no interpretation mess up or anything of that nature. It also bypasses any thought forms, or I mean, what we call language barriers or anything of that nature. Like when I'm communicating with beings and beings are communicating with me, it's all telepathic. They're not speaking their language. I have their thoughts, their message or whatever they're saying in my mind, and the same with them. So there is no miscommunication, no misinterpretation. There's no language barrier or anything of that nature. But sound of voice carries an energy, which is quite interesting. So it doesn't mean we give it up, but in fact, when we do speak it, okay, we can add more to it. So instead of just receiving through the ears and interpreting, you're actually receiving more of their thought forms. So there's a lot of people that are able to see what people are saying to them much more deeply. So for example, I'm saying, well, the color of this vehicle is red, right? But I also can see the color in my mind of the red car, but I can see the car and the details of the car. Now, the person that you're communicating will get a vision of what you're seeing rather than just a description. They're getting a bit of a description, but they're also seeing the scene. So it goes even deeper. So that's kind of the communication. Of course, then you go into higher dimensions. Because look at it this way. How many times have you found, Todd, when you're trying to describe something that you've seen, and it's so hard to find words to describe it? You've seen something, but you can't put words to it because we haven't put a language to a lot of things. So what happens is the efficiency of the telepathic actually projects the vision of what you saw, and also the interpretation and understanding of what you saw. So for example, you had a dream and you're trying to describe it, you know, like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So imagine a projection of what you saw as a vision. eliminates or reduces so much of what you're trying to describe, and they get a very clear picture of what you've seen. In fact, they can actually experience part of what you experience, because the next level of telepathic connection is to also relate with the feelings that someone may have had during that experience. So if you had an experience with something of that nature, then not only do they see the vision, whatever you've described, but the feeling you felt, and also what was supporting that feeling. So there's so much more that you get out of the whole experience. So that's why the telepathic is much more appealing, because it has much more information and details and clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I've watched the telepathy between Morgan and I, which is a nice little laboratory, you know, and it's pretty cool. One of the things I notice is it's not, you know, because I think like that. I'm like, okay, how can you be more telepathic? You know, how could you do that? You know, do you sit down and tell somebody that? But it seems to be coming on very naturally. And, you know, there's a little getting used to the relying on it, because it's kind of like relying on intuition. I guess it's the same type of frequency. Intuition, telepathy.
Yes. Intuition, most of the time, what intuition is basically a part of you communicating with you. And for example, if you're trying to find out how somebody's feeling, say, for example, Morgan, you know, she's having a particular interesting day, whatever that may be, right? So she may not be feeling communicational, or whatever the word is.
That's a word.
Okay, communicative. So she may not feel communicative with describing what's going on, but you can tune into the feelings. You can have a sense of what she's experiencing, and even how her mind and body is responding to it. Okay, with much more clarity. So that intuition is really connecting with someone at another level to get a deeper understanding. And then at that point, you can actually share. Now, here's the beautiful part. Have you ever had somebody go into a challenging experience, and you're trying to say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, you know, it's going to be fine, we're going to move on. And basically, they're not so receptive, because the mind is filtering it through all the stories. However, telepathically, intuitively, if you transmit by just feeling what you feel about what was just shared, that person will receive that transmission, and they will better relate and actually align with that frequency, so that even if they were down here dealing with their challenge, and whatever you're saying from up here is not registering, but when you actually are connecting at that point, you're actually bringing that vibration there, and that level of consciousness and everything that you shared, so that now it's much more powerful than anything we could have said.
Yeah.
Because
I can relate.
They're seeing it, feeling it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, it's funny we're talking about this, because if I don't know how far back this goes, maybe 2 months. But I remember actually having conversations with myself, saying, I know what she's feeling. I mean, like in the body, right?
Yeah.
And also this is during the time, when there's not, you know, what would be the typical amount of communication. Everything's cool. Everything's better than cool, better every day. This is about, you know, the subject at hand. And what I'm saying is it's less and less being said, to the point where you almost, for me anyway, I can't speak for her, but you almost go back into it. Don't I need to be saying something? But it doesn't last very long, because I guess that's one of those projections, or, you know, one of the projections that was in the old inverted 3D, you know, all the pressures and the, you know, all that stuff, you know, all the things. I got to do this. I got to be this label. I got to be this role, and all that.
Yeah. And the need to communicate, because look at it this way. How many times have you heard over the years, you know, things would be better if people just communicated, right? So then we build this idea that if we don't communicate, there's something wrong. And if we don't, you know, we're not always communicating, then the relationship or whatever's going on is not progressing. However, with going into that higher state, you find that less is needed to be communicated because we go more into a feel, more into a knowing of what each other's experiencing, but it's a merging, it's a marriage sort of thing of each other's experience, and you grow a lot more rapidly and more powerfully because of it. I'll give it a chance to settle in.
Right on.
You got it?
No, that's absolutely, no, I heard again the ET bits, little snippets, but I got it all.
Yeah.
No,
so
that's actually, I mean,
the feeling and connecting is so much more powerful, much more enriching, and you get much more out of the experience, right? So you can be with somebody, say very little, and really like there's a marriage that happens energetically, consciously, and also in the sharing of the experiences.
Absolutely. And I think this is, I've been saying this for months, like the biggest part of all of this is the aspects of having to get used to something that wasn't typical, almost that was Nirvana-esque or, or utopian. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's nice because you see it happening in different aspects of your life, whether it be your physical body transforming or the transformation of relationships. I mean, I'm not really describing, I'm using this as a case study when I talk about it on the shows, but it's happening everywhere. And I'm really getting that even more yesterday. We did this private, not broadcasted, open to the public Zoom webinar. And it was just hey, come in and show your face if you want to, and let's talk, let's, throw some questions around. And what was amazing, there was about 70 people in there, 75 people, and they all stayed. They all had the same energy and the same story. And, and I woke up this morning going, God, people making posts about why aren't they talking about this pedophilia? Why aren't they talking about the Vatican? And I'm thinking, why aren't they talking about all those people that were in that meeting last night? These people talking about what we talk about on this show when you and I get together. I mean, these people were talking about everything from, their last ET visitation to, one lady testified basically, if you want to use old school jargon, and started crying. I mean, this was pure feelings and telepathy. And this was like 5D, you know what I mean? So it's nice, but this stuff is, that's like, for instance, that's the first time I've ever been in an environment like that with that many people, where it was that pure,
Beautiful.
in a spontaneous, unorganized, by 3D standards, way. But this is the type of stuff we're getting used to. And this is what's so amazing. Is that you when you're with somebody, it's different because there's somebody there, and you even then wondered what's going on in the outside world. But now you're saying, oh my God, this is catching fire. It really is.
Well, people are more and more than ever opening themselves up and feeling more open to connect and communicate at this level, to really go into the depth of deeper understanding of themselves, their reality, and so forth. Because the whole idea of, blaming, the systems and all the stuff that's going on, like you said, the pedophiles and all of that stuff, putting the attention of that, we're still going into victimizer. We're still going in with right and wrong, good and bad, which we understand is not really the case. Now, do we need to still support any of that? No, because we're stepping out of it. But at the same time, to fuel it, to give it much more power and time and energy around who did what and didn't do this and so forth, and relating to that. For most people, it's caught in the drama and the energy of it, because there's a part of them that feed off it. But then the ones that are actually shifting, their energies are increasing, their consciousness is opening up, they feel less and less attracted to it. In fact, that they start to actually gravitate more and more to even the discussions that we're having, because that becomes more at home for them, and it starts to make more sense to them than what's going on the outside world. And when we say the outside world, it's basically the screen around us that is reflective of still the old collective ideas and whatever else that was going on. So this is what's really changing. And so there's more and more people that are, opening their hearts, opening themselves, wanting to understand deeper what's going on, how it's going on, what's happening, and everything else, because that's calling from them. There's that part of them and saying, okay, it's time to step out of the old version of yourself. The whole idea that you're this body with all these programs and belief systems and whatever else, and that the game is the game. Because if we look at it, really, the main reminder here to make things easier is to remind ourselves, this is just a game, and we've come here to play, and you're the designer of the game. You can shift every part of it. So let's do it actively, because that's what's coming along for us. And that's why we feel the way we feel.
It's amazing, because it affects your emotional, your mental, your physical, and all. It's not like one part of them are becoming refined. They're all becoming refined in a parallel fashion, and it's leaving this space. And that's what I described at the top of the show. I can't, it's like what you said. Have you ever had something you can't describe? But it's this fluidity, it's this motion. And I described it as best I could, having this relationship and having a place to stay and being, and all the things that make up the day, yet it doesn't have that there that those people were talking about, which is fine with me, because because to me, I've brought it down to, what, all I got to do is get used to being in this space and not going to those programs or those loops or those thoughts or whatever you want to call them, like, okay, where are you going to be next month, or how are you going to do this, or, and for me, that is going to take a little work, but I think I'm, making progress, and I think a lot of people must be.
Yeah. And the thing is, the beauty of what you just said is that, if you're not concerned about, where are we going to be tomorrow, what's going to happen next, whatever it is, and planning and all of that stuff, and you allow yourself to just kind of be in the moment and be fully present in the experience, and like enjoying every aspect of that moment that you have in this moment, and allowing the self-direction that comes from within to actually create. Because the biggest way to interfere with our own movement forward is to project your idea of what it's supposed to look like down the road, right? Because then you're taking a big spectrum of pure potentiality and you're narrowing it down, and then narrowing it down to just a few. But then who's the one that's narrowing it down? Is it your ego? Is it your overall consciousness that has all these programs? Because if you actually allow yourself to be open, then you know how things change moment by moment. So first you're going to see, well, I'm going to be homeless, and then all of a sudden an opportunity comes a minute later, and it's like, oh, you can come and stay at our place, or listen, I have a place over there and it's empty, can you go take care of it, and whatever. And it's like, oh, I'm not homeless anymore. But if you give power to it and say, oh my God, what am I going to do? We got to plan this out. We got to figure this out. We got to go and, collect some good big boxes so that we can sleep under the bridge in the boxes with some warmth or whatever. What you've done is you've taken this and made it into this little sliver that you barely can see through. So this is what's changing for us. And that's why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, because the old you and all of us basically would have gotten into this whole story and drama of the idea where we're going to go next. I need to know, I need to plan, I need to be this, right? But that's not us as you're going into that more organic 3D and 5D operating system. We're already there.
Yeah. I just had this flashback. I had this old friend throw out a lifeline for himself. You know what I mean? This was 2-3 weeks ago, and so there was a part of me that I knew, because I'd been him, or for whatever reason, I don't know. This is post October, right? And I just said, I got to leave that alone. I could tell in what he wasn't saying, what he was looking for. And I just heard today that he's doing well, so I think that's part of it too. That part of our behavior patterns were to, in the name of love, go help somebody, sacrificing ourselves. All those things are the type of things that you're talking about that are they're just flat going away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not about, sacrificing for anybody or anything of that nature. It's really reminding them through a conversation, through energetic, telepathic, or whatever it is, of the potentialities and so forth, but also being an example of something, because the thing is, people don't want to be saved, even though they say so. Okay, because at one point, yeah, thank you for saving me, but I really wanted to do it myself in a way.
Exactly.
And that's, even though it's deep inside, whatever that operating system of belief system of, I don't like to be saved, but if I'm saved, then, I'm just been disempowered. So most of everything that we're experiencing right now is to empower us to really navigate our journey rather than the whole disempowerment. Because the thing is, we arrived, we're in a different playground, the world is completely different, and we had no say in the matter, is very disempowering. So the fact is, okay, I have a say in the matter. In fact, I am now going to be able to transition from one state to another, but through my own self-direction, rather than, here's your new playground, go and play there, everything is different anyways. And you're going, I didn't get to learn what I wanted to learn. I didn't get to empower myself. Now, how do I disrupt it? How many times have we seen people that are gifted all the time, and if they really do not just take on with that and move forward, what they end up doing is they receive it, but they destroy whatever they've received so that they can actually go back to the same state, because they really want to do it themselves, even though they may not know it at first. Because of the fact is, it's very disempowering. It's like, I'm the master creator here. This is why the whole idea of religion becomes very disempowering, saying, well, there's some deity who created everything. This deity is telling us to do everything. This deity is actually the only one that judges right, wrong, good, bad, and says what needs to be or not to be, and decides when you leave and when you come in, right? And that's very disempowering in that state, when deep inside we know that's not the case. I mean, I chose to be here. I came here to play, and I came to do whatever I chose to do. There's nothing outside of it.
That sounds like the lesser gods, like the government and all that. We've gone through all the lesser gods. They're all gone now. Exactly. So comment. We are becoming Sybils. You know the movie Sybils, with the lady with the multiple personalities? Sally Field was in it years ago.
Okay.
We're becoming consciously managing, in a state of love, the multi-dimensional aspects of ourself. Okay. Hold that thought, because there's a second part.
Okay.
A question comes up. So if one part has created disease, can other parts assist in that one part? So I want to ask a multi-dimensional question off these comments. So, this is about unity, oneness. So in our vessel, we are these multi-dimensional aspects that we were coming into a state of managing with love from the highest intention. I guess in a way, I've just answered my question that when as we're healing here consciously, we're healing all that. Yeah. So that makes sense. We're affecting all timelines, all dimensions. Now, in terms of like a unified body, like everybody here that's watching right now, me, you, and these people, creating a conscious unification, right? Like I don't know how you would say that, but connecting with the unified energy that we create, that we are, right? Now, if one part of that is diseased, can the other parts assist when that unification? Is there a level where that unification can be met, and those kind of things can happen in a small group or with 2 or 3 people or whatever?
Absolutely. And what happens is, when you have a group of people, like, for example, right now, wherever people are online, listening, watching, whatever you want to call it at this point in time, is part of a collective, a smaller collective, because there's the collective, which is everybody on the planet, but then there's all cluster collective. So we're in a cluster collective. What happens in the cluster collective? There's a merging of energies, a merging of consciousness, a merging of awareness, a merging of frequencies that we're all sharing amongst each other. So that's actually supporting each and every one of us at this point in one way or another, basically encoding and giving us the opportunity to be able to shift any part of it. So in fact, like you were saying, somebody's diseased by coming together at that point, as long as there's no other agenda playing out, the energies that are held by the ones that are non-diseased or holding an energy where it has moved from disease to be in complete health, is actually holding that particular energy, which any individual can tap into by just being present with it and affect them on that respect. Now, if the soul or even the human entity at this point in time has an agenda of some sort, this is beyond the other agenda of saying, okay, we need to do this, this, and this is keeping you true. A lot of times disease keeps you true. For example, if you're not on track and you're not doing what you need to be doing, for example, and as long as you're feeling well, you're going to go off track even further, then that's bringing this disease to kind of bring you in the moment, to also slow you down. So it gives you time to reflect and to shift some parts of your life so that you're not going to stay on that other path that's get you on track. Right. So that's just one example. There's many, 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 many examples that it may be using that for. Others
like
may have
a higher purpose.
Yes.
Higher purpose.
Right.
It's a priority.
But, yes. But because we're all together, there's enough consciousness and energies coming together saying, we don't have to do it this way. We can do it another way. Right.
Yes. Yes.
And that's how it works. Yes.
Absolutely. My friend has a comment here, Anna Thomas. They say we have junk DNA, yet they are finding this DNA responds to coding that is reminiscent of how we respond to language and communication. Big steps towards healing from disease. Thanks for the comment. And when I was talking about disease, I was talking about something that was, off, whatever that could be. You could call it shadow. You could call it anything. But I love your answer because it takes that reliance off of predetermination. And to me, as the living, made in the image, creator, whatever you want to call it, everything is nothing, up to the instant. Because in this instant, everything goes out the window, and whatever is spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and courageous, it creates universes, ideas, all kinds of stuff. I like that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the beauty of all of this is when you have people coming together and they're sharing and they're creating that cluster, it makes it much more powerful to affect the next level of clusters. Now, the beauty of all of this is because all of us are in different parts of the world right now that are on the calls, right? Or even watching this and listening to it. And even if they're watching it later, they're connecting with that. So it's almost like you're seeding all these different clusters of collective wherever they are, starting from their family, or their immediate and extended family, through their community, through their work environment, or whatever environment that they're in. So it's almost like you're looking at the globe and you're basically lighting up all over the world, just because the fact that we're doing this online at this point in time, and as they listen to it. So first you create the energy in the collective, and then because everybody's positioned everywhere else, you're kind of creating links and sparks of consciousness and light and codes and so forth throughout. So it's not only just the small group that come together and watch this, it affects on a larger scale, and it's much more powerful. Like you've probably heard, I'm sure you've heard it, where, more than two or more come together, you're actually exponentially increasing the intensity and the energy of transformation, change, or awareness, or anything of that nature. And the fact that not only everybody's energy coming in, but the sharing that goes on, even the thought forms that create in their mind by just listening, already starts to shift themselves and their environment around them.
Yes. And so here we are on 11/11, and we've got a full moon tomorrow, transformational energy. And we're all transformers, we've discovered.
Yes.
2020 is coming in hindsight. You know what I mean? But when we talked before December, everything gets, as was the trajectory at that time, everything gets cleared. Everything being the ego, the AI implant, i.e. ego, the 3D inverted, everything is clear. And is it still that way? Does it still seem like it's headed that way?
No, nothing has changed. But in essence, what we're looking at by the 21st of December was to completely disable the inverted matrix projection. We will still have the ego, which we will be shutting down on our own based on each individual that's involved. Because there's 3 stages to this. And I'll explain these stages. The first stage is that, we have an inverted matrix transmitter that is basically beaming down, which the receivers are basically us, but the main operating system that works with that is the AI, or what we call the ego. Okay. So by the end of the year, the transmission of this inverted matrix ceases to be transmitting, but we're still experiencing the inverted matrix and the 2D inverted 3D through the projection of the ego. Now, the ego itself is no longer supported, is no longer being streamed, so it has a tendency to break down a lot quicker, especially if new consciousness of ourselves start to infiltrate, because it's not supported. It's like an operating system that's left on its own. Now, once the ego shuts down, and that could take whatever period of time and it depends on all of us individually. When that shuts down, then we have the consciousness, the overall consciousness. What's the overall consciousness made up? The overall consciousness is made up of programs, belief systems, and so forth that we still have. So if those belief systems are still very powerful and we're still operating in those perceptions that were created in 2D and inverted 3D, then what happens is that we're still living that part of it. And so that deprogramming continues. Now, we've already started the deprogramming for quite some time, but that continues. Once that starts to deprogram, more of our new operating system starts to take form, which is basically coming from a higher consciousness. And then, yes, our world starts to shift in a big way because what we're projecting shifts in a big way. So what I wanted to say, it's like with what's taking place at this point in time, for people to understand that even the overall conscious can mimic what looks like the ego because it has its programs, right? Its stories and whatever else. But the thing is, look at the difference. The ego is a story maker. And the ego only works in the past and the future. It doesn't do very well in the present. It plugs everything into the present. So you're in the present and it's plugging you in the present based on the past and the future, right? And it makes stories. For example, if you're going through an experience and you get triggered, okay? Somebody says something to you and there's a subconscious memory which your conscious mind is using that says you're not good enough. You always screw up. It's just a belief system, okay? It's just a story, a perception. However, without the ego, it's just that memory comes up, the emotions attached to it come up and whatever else, and you may feel a certain way. What the ego does, it takes that belief system, that story, and creates a multiple stories. For example, oh, look at this. Look at what happened then and what happened there. And what if you don't change this, it's going to happen to you tomorrow, next week, next time. You can't trust anybody. And it just makes up all these random stories to support a little idea that maybe you're not good enough, So your program says you're not good enough. The ego makes sure that you really buy into the fact, and it reminds you every single time. It goes right into your archive of your subconscious mind and digs up everything and then colors it, shapes it to a point where it could have been a little molehill and makes it into a mountain. So it's not just, oh, you just screwed up. For example, say you may have said something incorrectly and somebody may have felt uncomfortable 10 years ago, right? The ego, once it gets triggered, that program, cool. Oh, remember what happened 10 years ago? Well, you not only messed up that person, but you haven't been able to progress ever since because of that. And this happened and that happened. And it just keeps adding on. Even if it's not even something that you even experience, it will add and add and add to make it huge, to paralyze you, to get you so bound up. And that's the part of the dialogue. A lot of people, what happens is when the ego shuts down, there's not all that story running around. It's not all that chatter, the monkey mind, they call it, and so forth, depending how active it is. But it's a schizophrenic one too.
It's all kinds of no, but you know what? This is great. So this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm getting. And I know as individual goes, so goes the collective. So if I look back over the last few months, I know I can sit there and go, okay, the less chatter, less chatter, less chatter, less chatter. This period of the last 2 months, or certainly this month here, this 5 weeks in this cabin, it has gotten very, very quiet, but it's also gotten very or more and more balanced, or it's just a different feeling. It's almost weird at times. And you do have a surge of this or a surge of that. And it doesn't last. And this thing that you're telling, that you're explaining about the ego with the storytelling. Well, if you think about it, that's the perfect explanation, because it's like, I think I told you this when we talked to her, maybe the last time we talked, but I had this thing maybe 3 weeks ago where I walked outside and I said to myself, oh, she's thinking this. And my higher self just went, shut up. You know what? No, I said something like, it's like this because she's thinking this, whatever it was. And my higher self said, shut up. It's like that because you're thinking that. I thought, oh, but this was like the 20th time that something like that had come to me, shown different ways, which was basically, don't let your mind wander. I mean, you're making this stuff up, so it becomes quiet. And this is what you were describing, which I think is going to take us some getting used to as more and more of us come together. It's one thing to be living with somebody, or 2 or 3 people in the same place or whatever, but to have groups of people. I mean, if you think about like Woodstock, that was prolific, that was profound, that 500,000 people could come together and carry this frequency. We're 50 years later. And it's a quantum environment, and energy's moving back and forth like at warp speed. I mean, imagine what's coming, and it's no coincidence that more and more people are coming together. And after what you explained earlier in the show, when all these energies come together like that, it could be 80 people, but it's having huge repercussions throughout the earth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because again, people are becoming more and more receptive of that state of being. And what happens is they could be stuck in their world, in their reality or dream state, what we call dream state, awakened dream state, of whatever they're playing. But there's that other part of them that is nudging them and always streaming as much as possible to kind of stimulate. And whenever a group is transmitting throughout the world, it's actually giving reinforcement. Remember how I said the inverted matrix is beaming down to the ego to keep you stuck? Well, we are, from a soul perspective, coming together to stimulate everybody's souls and stimulate their human entities, to stimulate their overall consciousness and stimulate their physicality to get in alignment, just because of the fact of the conversation and the shifting that's going on. So we actually become the transmitter, we being anyone at this point in time that is actually shifting their reality and moving forward in that way, to stimulate everybody around the world one way or another. And this is the reason that there's been so much, besides, the influx of energies that were coming in, but it's the people that are coming to further realizations, people that are shifting their lives and so forth, is creating a ripple effect throughout. And everyone's has an opportunity to pick pieces of it and start to bring it into their lives, and shifting their thought patterns, their way of observing, and the importance, because this is the other thing too, it shifts the importance of the day-to-day life. It's like a conversation I had today, and it's like somebody had said, oh, I came to the realization that, all the stuff that I put so important before regarding money and whatever else, just dropped away. It's almost like I don't really care for it anymore. Not They don't still play the game, but it doesn't have the importance, the requirement, and the obsession of, I need to keep doing this because this, that, right? So it's actually shifted that part.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I think that's another part. I keep going back to the same thing. It's the biggest challenge is eventually going to come to light, which is just getting used to it. You know, it's just getting used to it. It's just different. It's different. It feels good, but it doesn't have that, oh, you're there now kind of feeling, or it wouldn't even be legitimate. It's just like you see it happening. And like you said, people shifting their lives, and you know, it's just like, it's like that little get together last night. I mean, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And truly, I don't think one damn word had to be said. I think we could have sat there for we were there 2 hours. I'm thinking like an hour and 15 minutes, 2 hours. But it was so pure. And here we go again. You know, you had something you can't describe in words. And I would say that's in this category. But whatever it was that I was observing and part of was, you know, it was unarguable, pure love, pure openness. And man, the power of that used with some focus, we'll have pyramids all over the world.
Yeah, you actually ignite them, turn them back on. Absolutely. No, it's go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was going to shift gears. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, no, what you shared in that that experience of that purity, it's really allowing ourselves. So the one thing you know, you've heard about surrendering, right? Okay, surrendering to our higher self and whatever it is. It's really an allowance. It's allowing yourself, your higher perspective yourself, to come more to the surface, to come more into your reality, more of your experience. So it's really an allowing, because surrendering has a different energy than allowing. When you're allowing, it's an empowerment. We're surrendering, you're giving up, sort of thing. Now you can turn around and say, well, I surrender to my higher self, which is, you know, already a huge step forward. But it's like, okay, higher self, I am now allowing you to navigate, and we're going to team up. We're going to work together. This is the thing. It's not about, okay, I give up, you know, you take over, whatever it is. And some people do that but that's going through a state of frustration, because when you're in an empowered state, you're not in frustration. Frustration says, oh, I give up. You know, it's not about giving up and say, I'm going to allow that other aspect of me. I'm going to reduce and stop my resistance, my insistence of holding on to that idea of what life looks like. I'm going to open myself to an expanded knowing of life and the game that we're playing. Anyways.
Yeah.
You go ahead and carry on with the direction you were going to go.
No, that was good. That was good. No, what I was going to bring up, and I don't even really want to bring this up, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because three people brought up this subject, and they seemed to be, well, I don't know. To me, it just kind of resonated. Maybe I needed to rethink it. Maybe it was something in me that was in resistance or something. I don't know. And I know we've talked about it before, but that's Star Family having a big outing. You know, Star Family having a formidable, event or whatever. You know, people talk about 3 different locations, that type of thing. I'm still not balanced in this, and I'll admit that. I kind of find it hard to believe that anyone's going to appear and, you know, we're all going to, you know, go to Candyland, whatever. I think we are the deal here, you know? So, but I don't know, for some reason it struck me, these people were very credible people, and it was in just a casual conversation. And, I don't know, what do you think the odds are, and what would be the significance of it happening, or the good, or the pros or the cons? I mean, just coming from where
you're saying our Star Family. You're saying like our Star Family showing up?
Yeah, just showing up and saying, hey, we're here, you guys, we're watching you. We're just letting you know who we are in a big way, so nobody has to argue about it. And we're going to go back up in into these invisible craft, and we'll be here. Enjoy yourself.
Well, they only maintain a certain invisibility and limited exposure because of the collective's response and idea of what would happen, or the idea that something would be bad or dangerous of some sort. And that's why the limit part. I mean, they're more than open to the idea of presenting themselves, which they do. They do to people that are, you know, open to it and ready for it. But if we're talking about mass, you know, presentation of themselves and saying, okay, here we are, you know, you're our brother, sister souls, we're here to support you, whatever it is, but we're not going to, you know, carry you, but we're just going to help you to grow up and well, not grow up, it's the right word for it, but to you know, connect with your true nature and so forth, and assist you in that way. They full have the intention. The only reason they've been holding back, and I know it's going to happen at some point when the energy is at a certain point where people are more receptive rather than. Okay, so let me give you an example. This conversation has come up several times over the years with my brother, sister souls that are, you know, what you can call alien race or starseed race. They basically have said, we're willing to connect with you guys at any point in time. However, they will do simulations to say, okay, we show up. And then they measure the reaction of the collective to see if it swings one way or another. Meaning, if they show up, they go negative, meaning, oh my God, they're invading, and we have to be afraid, and we have to shut down. Now we have to get the military. Now we surrender more of ourselves to be able to have, you know, safety, illusionary idea. But, or do we actually say, oh, okay, here we are, we're moving forward. We're, you know, all of these stories we had before are being clarified, that we're not alone, that there are more civilization, more of us, you know, in different versions, different physicalities, and we receive them. So it measures the two and says, okay, they do a simulation of having a small group show up, a larger group show up, a mass collective showing up, and so forth, and then measure to see how the collective would respond. And they've only been holding off because still the collective still responds in the negative.
Yeah, too much.
Now,
it's too much fear.
It is. And then if you look at it, Todd, possibly not as much now, but if you look at some of the last 10 years or more, if not more, you know, the movies, how many of them are bringing aliens involved? And it's never really super lighting, you know, here you are, your brothers and sisters. No, they're always evil, or that, you know, they're going to, you know, compromise the human experience. Yeah.
Predators.
Predators, that's the word. Yes. So those are still in our operating system. So once a lot of that purges, the ego part of it, the inverted matrix projects a lot of that. Yeah. The ego starts to go, and the consciousness starts to, then they have no resistance to it. Right now, they keep themselves invisible because, and not totally, because they do show themselves here and there, their ships, but they don't do it in large swarms because people still react. Now, the people that are more open to it feel a little comfort in them, saying, oh, they're around, they're keeping an eye on us, we don't have to be overly concerned. So it supports them in that regards. Others don't see enough of it to go into fear. So, you know, it works both ways because both of it is supporting in one way or another.
Yeah, it's and the ones that are in alignment are the ones that see them. So, which brings me to my next question. I hope I'm not keeping you. Are you on a short?
No, fine.
Okay, it's 8/11, so it's 11/11 somewhere, somewhere near Europe on 11/11. So I'm going to ask you this. So this would be like a session-esque question, possibly. You know, so this is for me. I'm just going to take that liberty today. It's 11/11. I need all the help I can get. But what I've noticed in the natural progression of the communion that we have nightly, Morgan and I, that is really accelerated in a very subtle way over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And we might do it openly talking. Most of the time we don't. I tend to have my eyes open. I've told you before, she tends to close her eyes. What I've noticed over the last few nights is, this actually goes back about 10 days when we had something happen, but ever since that night, I'm having these conversations with our brethren and they're coming in a little bit more clearer and clearer, and they look like nothing I've ever seen before, and they're only giving me a little bit at a time. But where I wanted to pinpoint was the conversation that I'm having, because I'm having this conversation. I'm thinking, am I having this conversation? Right? I mean, it's like we talked about the peculiarity of getting used to this, what's occurring. I'm saying that there's like this depth of communication, or I'm losing it. I don't know which one it is, but it's so peculiar. I'm doubting myself. Now, this just came to me while I'm talking to you. I hadn't really thought about it. You know how things float around in your head and all of a sudden they come and they present themselves? And quite a few other things have happened since I've been talking to you here, which I can't mention. Maybe later I can tell you.
Okay.
I don't want to scare anybody. Remember, people are still more in fear. I don't want to create a War of the Worlds situation. But no, seriously, these, you said that they're different simulations that they test. I would imagine that the one that's most often used and accepted, obviously, is going to be with 1 or 2 or 3 people, but typically one person rather than a group and all that. What's your intel on that? Or is there a protocol? Is there a way to move that forward or expand that communication with the star family or the multidimensional aspects, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, if you're talking about individually, it's really about having any clearing out some of the fears and any the doubts that you may have that they would even be present for you, because this is what starts to change as we start dropping the idea that it's not possible, the idea that they can only land and has to be a certain specific way. We start getting out of the idea because they can present. I mean, I've had it many times. It's just the other, not even a week ago, they showed up in my room, right? And so they were doing some work on me and so forth, but they presented, right? So with me, I'm used to them and I've gotten the idea, I don't have any issues of what they look like or, their size or anything of that nature, and be comfortable with that. But for me, it's been around for a long, long, long time. So, I mean, it's like,
I was going to say, you're making me feel very inferior.
No, it's not.
How long you been doing that? Well, tell me like 40 years or something, right? I'm kidding. No, I know you've been engaged in that in quite some time. Go ahead.
But at the same time, so it's really dropping any potential fear that we may have around it. And the interesting thing is, at times our body itself, because of the genetic encodements and so forth that you may have from the lineage and so forth, may still react. You may have goosebumps, or you may just freeze up, or whatever it is, because it sees something that it's not used to. Doesn't have that data stored in it, saying, okay, see that. So you may have that take place, but if you actually allow yourself to envision their presence and so forth, and make your body more comfortable with it, and make your mind more comfortable with it, then it creates an opening so that they will not startle you, and because they can sense. For example,
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, just one last thing. Say you invited them to show up, okay? You will find that before they do, they will check you. They will do a simulation to see how you respond. Now, if there's enough closing, they will be a little more reluctant. Now, if you're with somebody, say you're with Morgan, and you have a beautiful connection, the two of you, and there's something special happening in the sense of that connection. Your energy and her energies are merging, your consciousness goes up to the next level, then you're creating a bubble sort of thing that is a much more open than you standing there alone from only one perspective of it. So you're supporting each other to be comfortable with their presence. So there's a chance that they will visualize or show up in a visual form more readily to you because of it. The other time, but again, it has to be in sync, because if one is afraid and the other one's okay with it, then it doesn't work. Because I've had people where groups have gotten together and say, okay, I want to call in our alien brothers, and they're supporting on each other, but there's still enough fear in certain individuals that it would, create an uncomfortable scenario at that time.
That makes sense. Makes sense. And that's how it's happened, when, well, I don't know. We've been in, which we usually are anyway, but I mean, we've been in a higher state or whatever you want to call it, and it happens. Or she turns into a dragon and then bites me. No, I'm kidding. Just about the second part, I'm kidding. Yeah. And yeah. Okay. And I know what I was going to ask you. So, okay. And I guess everybody's different. Now, you made me think of a couple of things. One, I guess it would hold true that in our makeup, each individual's makeup, they have certain sensitivities, or however that's determined or done. Just like I might be afraid of a spider and you have no problem with it. So what you're saying is that depending on what's coming in, there might be still something in your makeup, in your cellular or whatever, or your lineage, that might be a little bit, off with whatever's coming in. And I realize that everybody's communion is different. I mean, I realize that. But just in terms of your own experience, do you see actively trying to communicate, and I would word this as communicate with my own multidimensional aspects? Let's put it that way. That might make people feel more comfortable. But would you say that, but engaging, initiating, pursuing a higher and higher level of communication with those parts of you is a clear asset to our growth from this point forward, or is just everybody different and some people may do it and some people may not?
Yeah, it depends on the person, and some will do it and some will not. However, if you're more in a state where you're much more open and more advanced around that, then their presence will actually, or even the sharing, even if you don't see them visually, but just even what is shared, you end up internalizing, utilizing it more for yourself. It will depend on the individual. Now, the thing is, like you said, one may have an issue with a spider and someone may not. There's several levels of that. And that is, if the body itself, the overall consciousness of the body, or the memories of the body that took on the encodements from the lineage, has had something with spiders, for example, and was still active in the lineage, you coming through your parents would have got encoded, so the body would react. All of a sudden you see a spider and you pull back, right? Mm-hmm. If the human entity part of it has had negative interactions with spiders, for example, and may have even lost a life because of it, or has had something pretty profound, then the human entity may still project that into the mind and body and may react to it. The soul is not going to have much of an issue with spiders or anything of that nature, so you're not going to have too much of that. So the collective part of it, meaning the overall consciousness at this point in time, there's the any memories of any past experiences that have been labeled around a spider. The inverted matrix is interesting because the inverted matrix does stream the fear of insects, the fears of animal, the fear of other people, the fear of everything. So it just adds a little bit of a bonus. So what we're doing now is deprogramming a lot of those parts of us so that you are actually much more comfortable with the presence of anything there, and it becomes more natural. So the connection with yourself from a higher perspective will help deprogram part of the memories and lineage encodements from the body, from the human entity part and the overall consciousness part. I was going to say something else that I wanted to, now I just slipped my mind, but it was to do.
Go
ahead.
Keep going. Well,
Yeah,
keep thinking. So, but it feels like those loops aren't playing. Now I'm speaking both of like, maybe insect, animal for myself, and I'm just trying to give my own, but also in the non-physical, the etherical. Because when you said that about they'll test you, and check you, I almost started laughing then, but it's happened to me a few times, right? And then I've kind of gotten my handle on it. But I know that it's not just my efforts. I know it's actually there's a certain something that's not there, and kind of like the way you describe it, with that's not playing anymore, right?
Right.
It's the real is stopped. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the thing is too, exactly, some of the simulations you may not be aware of, I'm talking about in general, but some others you will, because for example, you're inviting something in, saying, okay, I want my brothers, sisters to show up, and they may simulate with you a vision that you may not totally recall of seeing them, the 7-foot gray, odd looking to our own perception, and then you get startled, and then they notice, oh, okay, still not comfortable with that, so we're not going to present yet. We'll just stream it in different ways until there's a more of a comfort level of that nature. Now the other thing is too, by connecting with our DNA, because you have to understand, each of our DNA is connected to a certain species of our brother sister souls in form. Okay, because our body is made up of 12 different species blended with different ratios. So in fact, the more those become active, memories of those parts of you get activated. So all of a sudden it's like, for example, say you have no connection to your hand, and the first you look at your hand and, oh my God, what the heck is that, right? Because you can move it, right? And you're not used to it. So that's what our DNA would do. It's like it's blocking out the hand, and you never look at it, or you never see it. But then when it becomes, you get startled. So when you start connecting with that energy, then you look at the hand and you recognize it. Oh, I'm just giving an example here.
No, I get that. I totally get that. It's a great example. So this is getting interesting. So there is this unlocked that's being unlocked as time goes on, memory that's in our lineage, that's in our DNA. Now, is DNA physical in your opinion, or non-physical? Is there is this relation that you're talking about in this example, the human aspect connected to the seeds, so to speak, or is this the soul? I know that's Todd, one of Todd's.
No, the DNA works within our body. So the DNA is energy, codes, and information, but it's also a transmitter receiver. Each DNA, I mean, we have more than one, of course, but we have 13 clusters, 12 different ones with the double helix and whatever else. Those are all transmitter receivers. For example, we have a reptilian DNA. That's one of the 12. And in that reptilian DNA, it actually has all the encodements and information that is available, what it represents being a reptilian physical form on a reptilian planet. And because there's the telomeres that are antennas, the receivers, at that point in time, you're always getting upgraded information. Now, of course, what happens is, with some of the changes we went through, this is kind of reversing now, was to turn off 10 of the DNA strands and modify, limit, restrict as much as possible the 2 that were remaining active, but barely active. So that we would not, for example, we would not have that close relationship with those species within ourselves. So in fact, that's why they would show up. So if a reptilian showed up, you may be startled because of the fact that we don't have a recognition. The body doesn't have a recognition because that particular DNA has been turned off, right?
Yeah, I see
And the
what you
ones,
mean.
and even if it's partially on, it's most of it has been modified anyway. So to see it as good or bad, or in this case, mostly bad, or
but in terms of improving our experience and regaining our memories, this is something we can directly focus on. We can directly, conscientiously, daily, consistently work on it, because we're opening up or turning on the receptivity of our DNA. So DNA, you know, is like, and I'm asking a question, physical, but it has the transmitter ability, say like the brain, like there's some type, or even the heart, but it's a physical, DNA is physical. I mean, that's what it sounds like what you were saying. Not that it's a big deal or it matters, because to me, the more important thing is we have the power to transform our DNA, or to open up our DNA, or make it
reactivate it, you know, bring it back online, have it update accordingly.
And also if a person, let's just say a person brought in an energy, or an energy was presented in front of the person that may be one type of star family or another, it's not that they don't have it in them. It's just that part of it's not open yet, or they don't have that memory yet. So therefore it's foreign.
Yes. And if that particular DNA is active and it's been upgraded and so forth, when you see them, it's almost like an extension of you now. It's like a strong recognition. You won't be startled, because you've already, you're actually experiencing them, even though they haven't presented visually. And then when they do, it's like, oh, here's my brother, you know, type of thing. Is not the reactive part. Is no longer
right. Yeah, it's I gotta say it, you know, it can't be me, you know. I mean, I know I'm with the wizard over here, but if it's happening to us, it's got to be happening to other people. I mean, and
absolutely.
after that, and you know, it was so amazing. You know what that call last night was like? It was like being in the audience. Everybody was in the audience, kind of thing. It was just like, I don't know. I never thought it would be, you know, Morgan basically pulled it downloaded it. She goes, oh, we got to do this. I don't know why. Just go do it.
So I got to check it out. I missed out, of course, but
I didn't even, it was private. I didn't even post it. I didn't post it, because I figured, because the idea was anyone that say still has a shyness and doesn't want to come on could come on and, you know, and be protected and give it a whirl. And a couple of them said, yeah, I'm ready now. So I don't know. It was just but it came out pretty good. So I want to know a little bit more about what you're doing, the second wave thing, because it resonated. You say it's coming up on the 23rd. So that's just what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's a little less than 2 weeks, actually.
So this part, can you kind of go over again and expand just a little bit? Because I know we talked about a lot, but this wave, this second part of it, I guess, is the way you referred to it. Because the first part was post October 21st, right? And then, or right around there. So this is like for the next level of it. Does it involve prepping or supporting or you know, expanding the maintenance or whatever you want to call it of the human body? Where's the emphasis on this next series that you're doing, or this next retreat that you're doing?
Yeah. The first one basically focused on understanding the organic 3D and 5D, how to really integrate it and see what really took place, and how it affected us, what the playground's going to look like, and so forth, and just kind of to prepare us at that point in time. The one that's coming up on the 23rd, which is just under 2 weeks from now, is called Your Role in Integrating and Fully Experiencing an Organic 3D and 5D. Because a lot of people, one of the things that they have to understand, there's a role that you have to take on for you to start to experience it. It's not like it's just going to be here, it's yours. Yeah, you're on the playground, you're on the platform, like they call it. But what's your role to start to live it? What's your role to experience it? How do you shift it? And this is a lot of the things that we talked about already, but no, I don't mean, we touched upon it, but in the whole thing, we're going to go into a deeper understanding, but also to really grasp what we need to shift in ourselves and how we can actually start living it and creating it, so that we're shifting from just waiting for things to happen, or just waiting for the energies to kick us around until we get it. Is really getting into the driver's seat. But at the same time, there's a part of us that needs to take on the responsibility, and the responsibility is not the old idea of responsibility, but okay, what's my part? How do I jump in? How do I start to utilize this, and so forth, right? And it goes into the depth of how to organize it and how to see it. So there's really a deeper understanding, a deeper way of putting things together for ourselves, so that we actually move forward and start living it. Because just the fact that we're on the platform and we're moving into it does not guarantee us to say, okay, we're here, right? No, what do we need to do to start living it? It's like, I give the example, you're going to go to France, right? How do you start living the French lifestyle unless you start adopting the French lifestyle? Let me look around. Let me start exploring, and how do I start to gain more of that experience, rather than, oh, I'm in France now, I'm French. No, I have to immerse myself. And what do I need to do? And how do I?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great explanation. What I was picturing was like New World, and like you come out of your house and they give you a little briefcase and a white smock, and say, you're a doctor. You're a doctor on this new playground. So A, you got to be the doctor, and B, that responsibility you're talking about, because there is obvious to me that as this information comes in, and as we expand, and as our own skills and abilities and life becomes more expansive, there is responsibility that goes with it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And that seems to be.
Yeah, the responsibility is really, when you really look at it, is that it's not, well, I'm responsible for my world. Yes, you are, but with a sense of responsibility, that means that I'm shifting from somebody throwing a way of life to me, and shifting it to, okay, I'm choosing now in this playground to shape my life according to what resonates with me. And it's not like the whole idea of creating, it's not the whole idea of saying, well, I want to have what everybody else has or somebody else has or anything of that nature, just because that means this or that. It's more of going into that creative ability. That's why we're shifting from manifestation to creation. Manifestation is basically tapping into potentialities that already exist, that others have experienced. So you could say, well, I can manifest something because the collective, there's been a group of people that in different states have created this. So let me tap into that because I want to bring it into my reality, which is great. But if you're going to create a new world, now you need to go outside of the old creation, because most of the manifestation was created from an older state. Now you're going into another level of creation where you're bringing in the highest, the purest, the more highest state of who you are as part of your design.
I agree with that. I love that. And the more you do that, the more abundance you have, because that's how this abundance works.
Right.
That's not me. I'm just saying that makes total sense. That's like the universal equation. Like your intentions are your intentions. And even if it looks a little flawed, your intentions are driving that abundance to a point, that, hey, you make a mistake, you learn a lesson, you move on, whatever. Yeah. This is good stuff. That sounds like a very interesting retreat. That's going to be on your website, francodinicola.com.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they've already put it up. If not, I'm going to be posting it on the comments right after we're done. So it's a one-day workshop, starts 11 o'clock Eastern time, and it goes till 5:30, 6 o'clock sometimes, but 5:30 normally p.m. It's a one-day workshop, full intense. People are able to interact because they can send in their questions and so forth, because there will be chats. It's going to be streamed on Vimeo, and it's going to be streamed on Zoom. So Kimberly will be around to take the questions, and she'll ask the questions, but when you go to the link that I'm providing, it brings you to Eventbrite, and it gives you a whole description of everything. It's fairly inexpensive for a full day. It's live streamed, and you also get the video and audio recordings of the whole thing if you attend live.
Excellent.
If you can't attend live, you can actually access or purchase the video and audio recordings. Of course, it's going to be a little less money, so that you have it for you all the time. So if you show up live, you get it, but you also get the live. And the difference is like $20 difference between one and the other. And the Canadian, which is, in American terms, is even less, like $12 or something like that.
I know it is.
Then if you can't attend, because some people, depending on what timeline or if they got other commitments, then they can just get the audio and video recordings. And all of it is there. And usually it's so filled with content and processes and so forth that people find it's super helpful and especially now. I mean, if we're serious in any way to move forward and really utilize what's going on and what we've provided ourselves with as a collective, then this is a great resource. And I do it just to assist humanity at this point in time, right? It's not... for any other get rich thing or anything of that nature, because that's not even in the equation, and that's why we charge very.
I totally understand that. In fact, I told you I actually had a conversation with the guy last night out of North Carolina. I won't mention his name because I don't have his permission, but he's been watching these shows for a couple of years, and he really likes your stuff and 2 or 3 other people, and he said he went to the last one, and he said he was very happy with it. He really was. We didn't talk at length about it. He was just letting me know. But so, and I know other people have gone, and it's Franco's Franco, and the proof's in the pudding. What you see is what you get. So,
exactly.
But yeah, send me if you put go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just even the type of conversation we're having gives them a taste of how in depth we go, and it's. I make it very light and playful, but also informative and also transformative in any which way, because it's really up to the individual and so forth for how they want to move with it.
Well, tag me on the announcement if y'all haven't done one yet, and
I will
obviously put it in the comments, but tag me on it, and I'll put it through the network.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely want to encourage that. All right. So, all right, man. I'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks. We're going to head to Sedona in 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Well, enjoy the travel. It's just there for temporarily, or you're going to be your new home for a little while? The Sedona. Is it just days. 6 days? Okay.
7 days. 7 days. Yeah. 7 days. And then we're headed east. And hopefully southeast. I'm just kidding. No, we know we're going to catch the snow. All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Y'all take care. Thank you very much. Happy 11/11.